Welcome to Rock Your Reinvention, the show for high-achieving career women who refuse to settle for mediocrity and aren't afraid to take bold action. This is a place where you can authentically show up, where every dream and goal can be validated and achieved. Hi, I'm your host, Karen Freeland, a certified life reinvention coach, speaker, and award-winning author. I'm here to give you the tips, tools, and strategies to help you shift your mindset, build your confidence, and take meaningful actions so you can rock your reinvention. Ready to go from stuck to thriving? Let's go. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Rock Your Reinvention. I could not be more excited by our guest today. She is so fierce. Wait till you hear her story. We had the opportunity randomly. It's so crazy how the universe works. We were just talking about this a minute ago, but we met in Miami. We were both down at the Miami Book Fest, and we just happened to run into each other on the street, started talking, noticed we had books in sort of similar women's genres, and instantly hit it off, and we've been connected ever since. So without further ado, I would love for you to meet the amazing and talented Lucy Beato.
Oh, thank you, Karen, for that lovely introduction. Much appreciated.
Oh, of course. Well, I certainly want to get to all of your credentials and all the things, but you want to just introduce yourself to everybody? Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and a fun fact.
Absolutely. So my name is Lucy Beato, and I'm a mother of two wonderful kids. And I think that I like to start with that because that is the most important role in my life, right?
Yes.
I am also a life and business coach and entrepreneur, and I am the author of a best-selling book called I Had Killer Boobs. And my mission is to guide women in self-discovery, self-worth, and help them achieve their personal and professional goals.
I love that. And I love your book in itself could be a fun fact. I love the title. I think it's so bold. So we're going to get into all of that in just a minute. How old are your kids?
I have an 8-year-old boy going on 13, right? And I have a 13-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. And I love that you started with that. You know, I have been so guilty sometimes of going to networking events, and I will get all the way through my intro. I give all my professional credentials and I pass it to the next person. And the next person starts with, I'm a mother of two. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot to mention that I'm married and I have children. It's like for some of us that are so type A personality and our work has been our priority for so many years, it's like a reconditioning of ourselves, right?
Yeah, like we already know we're a mother, so let's get to the next part. But that is a very important role, and they remind me every day of how important it is, especially because I am a single mother. So to me, it's like, no, I'm a mother first, and then everything else.
Yeah, good for you for really putting all that and keeping it into perspective.
Yes, but I want to share things you mentioned. And the fun fact is that I love making people laugh, right? Hence the title of my book, right?
Yes.
I Had Killer Boobs, So I just love being around people and making them laugh and making them feel good. So that makes me feel good.
Well, I already feel better just short period of time that we've been together. So you're doing your job.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's dive into this whole concept of reinvention, because that's why everybody's here today. They're looking for tips and guidance on how to reinvent some aspect of their life. And you have a wonderful definition of reinvention. And you've specifically said it's a profound act of transforming oneself in response, this is the important part, in response to life's challenges and opportunities. Can you tell us more about the life experiences that catapulted your reinvention?
There were two transformative life experiences that led to that. The first one is battling cancer, and navigating through a divorce was the second one, right? And these challenges became a catalyst for a profound shift in my perspective and priorities. Overcoming the physical and emotional hurdles of cancer strengthened my resilience. Mm-hmm. And while navigating a divorce prompted me to deep introspection and revolution my life's direction, right? And actually reevaluate my life direction. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So experiences compelled to me reinventing myself and having to start from scratch, so to speak.
Yeah. And if you could, like when you were sitting in the doctor's office and you got that diagnosis, those words, like you have breast cancer, what was that initial reaction like?
Well, the initial reaction was like, no, you have, because they called me. I was actually eating. It was the phone,
what?
right? they called me and they told me, you have a few minutes to talk. And I said, sure. Because I was so certain that the biopsy was going to come back negative. Because I mean, I was young, I was full of life, and I had nothing to worry about it, right?
Right.
I thought. But when I get the news and they're like, you have invasive carcinoma, and I'm like, what is that? And they're like, you have cancer. And I was like, no, you have the wrong number. Because like, seriously, that's not me. But unfortunately, it was me, right? And so
Right.
I feel like my whole life collapsed all of a sudden,
Mhm.
you know, and of course I broke down. I broke down because
Yeah.
who wouldn't in that? Nobody wants to hear that you have cancer, right?
Right.
Cancer is always associated with death,
Yeah.
right? So at that moment, I felt like, wow, I'm gonna die.
How did you shift out of that mindset? That like, okay, this is a death sentence for me to like, oh no, like I'm going to overcome this. I'm going to battle this head on. What happened for you to make that
Right. So
shift?
it was, believe it or not, it was a matter of like an hour. Right. So
Wow.
I left my business because I was working. I was having lunch. I left and I went and I cried. I cried it out. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to me. And then I'm like, wait a minute. This is happening. It's not happening to me. It's happening for me. Right.
Mhm.
And then I was like, you know what? It's better like this that it happened to me because I'm able to handle this. If it happened to one of my kids or my ex-husband, I didn't even know if I was able to handle it, but I could do this. I could do this. So
Oh.
I have cancer, but cancer doesn't have me. So let's see what I
Mm.
need to figure out so that I can get out of this.
Oh my
Right?
gosh, I love
Like a
that.
mindset.
Cancer, but cancer doesn't have me. That is literally applicable to anyone in any situation. Like I was laid off, but laying off doesn't have me. Like I mean, like you could literally replace any scenario that you were going through with that, and that it will totally change your mindset.
Absolutely. I think that everything that happens to us is not to us, it's for us.
Yeah.
So we have to see what the lesson is. I like to call them lessons, blessings and lessons, right? So everything comes with a lesson and everything comes with a blessing. So what is the lesson and the blessing and the blessing that you're going to receive out of it, right?
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. So many like truth bombs already, and we're only a couple minutes in. I'm loving it. So let's talk about this book. What actually led you to write the best selling book, I Had Killer Boobs?
Right. So my desire started from, going beyond the conventional narrative, right? Because we all know what cancer entails. It's not fun. It's not something that people look forward to reading, right?
Right.
But I wanted to bring a fresher perspective and I wanted to let people know that even when you go through difficult situations, you can still find humor. You can still find faith. You can still find inspiration despite the challenge. And so that's what I wanted to bring. I wanted to have a book that was refreshing in that sense. That yes, cancer sucks or whatever it is, a situation that you're going through sucks. But at the end of the day, there's light. And the way you handle it has a lot to do with how you come out of it. Your attitude determines your altitude, right?
Oh, yeah. That's another
Yeah.
good one. So, what was the reaction when you told people, hey, I'm going to write this book? Like, what did family and friends and other people say about it?
So my family has always been very supportive. They've been my strength since day one with this whole cancer thing. I mean, my mom, she left her life, so to speak, to come and support me and help me out through my journey. And my siblings, my sister, she was like my sister's keeper, I called her, because she was the one that actually told me, go to the doctor, go check yourself. Because I was like so sure that nothing was happening to me that I didn't want to go.
Right.
So like every single family member had a pivotal, like important part in my life that led it to me being felt supported.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I told them that I was going to write this book, they were like, oh my God, go for it. You have what it takes. Just do it. And they were very, very supportive. And then, of course, family, friends also. And I've received so many great messages and so many great positive feedback about my book and how it has helped other people and their journey. And ultimately, that's what I wanted. I wanted for people to read it and say, wow, if she did that, I could do that as well.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah. Isn't it the best when you get those little notes from people like, hey, I read your
Yes.
book. I'm going through this too. This gave me hope. It's just like, it's the best feeling in the world.
I think that you do it for that, to
Yeah.
know that you're touching people's heart and to know that you're making an impact. And that's my calling, my fulfillment. I feel so fulfilled when I hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to joke and just say, I mean, you don't write a book to make money, but some people do make money from writing books. But a lot of us, it's just kind of not as much about the money as it is about the impact that we're having.
Exactly. And I think that once you have that impact, that's the money. That's your fulfillment. That's what,
Yeah.
you're like, wow, I'm already paid. just by
Yes.
impacting people, right?
Yeah, it is. It's thinking about that in a different way, thinking about fulfillment in a different way. So, about future books, I mean, did you ever see yourself as a writer? Do you think that this is something you're going to continue with? Or are you just like, all right, I'm going out on a high note?
Right. No, I never saw myself as a writer until I felt the need to share my story.
Yeah.
But after I became a writer, I'm like, oh, I kind of like this. I think I want to continue doing this. So, of course, I want to do the Spanish version of I Had Killer Boobs because I want to reach a broader audience, right? So that's my next project. And then I also want to write a book about women in business and maybe the challenges of being in business as a woman and also being a woman in business as a single mother, which is my case, right?
Yeah.
So something along those lines.
Oh, I love it. We need that. We need those stories. And I know
Mhm.
you're bilingual, so you speak Spanish also, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So Spanish is my first language. No, I was born in the Dominican Republic,
Oh,
and I came
cool.
here at the age of 4, and then my parents kept sending me back and forth. So I did some schooling in DR, Dominican Republic, and some schooling here.
Oh, I love it. I know my kids are
Mhm.
getting into that age now where you got to pick your language. And I'm like, take Spanish, learn Spanish because it is, well, first of all, it's a beautiful language, but it's also like opens up so many doors because so many people now, especially in America, speak Spanish. It's like you got to know both, you know?
Absolutely. That's a struggle that I have with my own kids. And it's so embarrassing because I was a Spanish teacher and my kids don't want to speak Spanish. And I'm like, you know what? And what are the odds of this?
And they have the perfect teacher as a mom, like to know everything. That's funny. Well, I think sometimes too kids like to rebel against what their parents do, you know? So I can imagine if I had a daughter, she'd probably like hate dance or something, you know, and be like, no, I want to like learn golf or something. She'd do exactly the opposite of whatever I did.
Exactly. That's how they are. That's how they
Yeah.
are.
Totally, especially in those teen years. All right, so you're also a life coach and business coach, and I was reading on your website you have this really unique method that you use. So can you share a little bit more about that, what it is, and why you believe it's so effective?
Yes. So my methodology is called Valorarte, which is the art of valuing yourself. And it's a tool to support women in their journey towards self love, self discovery, and overcoming their fears and their paradigms, changing their paradigms, and to ultimately living a life with purpose. Because I feel like so many of us live a life and we don't really have a purpose. And I think it's so
Yeah.
important to connect your purpose with who you are, because
Mhm.
once you learn to live in purpose, everything makes more sense.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest struggle for me when I was in that season of life where I was just feeling incredibly stuck. The question was always like, what is my purpose? I mean, was I really put here to work 24/7 and constantly be attached to my phone and not have deep relationships with people because I'm so busy, I don't have time for anyone else? Like, this just, like, that was my big struggle. So, how do you help people figure out what their purpose is if they don't know at this time?
Right. So I like to start with what are their values? What do they consider the most important values?
Mhm.
Right. And we start from there because sometimes we think we know, but we don't know. And it's not until we put it in paper and say, this is what my beliefs are, and these are my boundaries, and this is what I think I am good at. And so we start identifying different aspects of their life. And then they're like, oh, okay, so this is my belief system. This is why I believe this. And these are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. And this is what I need to work forward with. And this is what I really like to do and enjoy doing. So it's like a self discovery. And I think it's so powerful when a woman is able to identify who she really is. Because I think that when you really know who you are and what the things that you like and don't like, then you flourish. And then you
Yeah.
become your best version. And that's what I do. I help women transform themselves from one version to their best version.
Yeah. And I love that you're talking about values because I think also our values change over time. And I don't know about you, but like for me, it was really hard to acknowledge, oh, maybe money isn't my most important value anymore. Like there was definitely a time in my life where money was super important. You know, I had bills, I was starting out my career, and that was a driver for me. But then I got to a point where I was like, you could pay me $1 million and I still wouldn't want to live this life. Like this is not fulfilling. And being able to say, oh, it wasn't that I was wrong or I had bad values. It's just that things have changed and that's okay. And let me embrace this new season where I have a different value.
Absolutely. Nothing is set in stone, right? And we
Right.
evolve, right? So the
Yeah.
person that we were last year is not the same person that we are today, right? So like when you were young, you were not a mother, and then you become a mother so that you're a different person. So just like that, our values change, our likes changes. We have different things that change and we evolve. So we have to be mindful of that. Nothing is set in stone. But the beauty of this is acknowledging it and being
Yeah.
able to recognize and say, you know what? I no longer am this person. I am this person, right?
Yeah. And like you said, that's so freeing. And you're really able to flourish when you do that and you make that commitment to this new version of yourself.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I was listening to someone this morning that's saying that the true freedom, it's not like having freedom with money per se. It's the true
Right.
freedom is here, right? And so when you're free to do the things that you want, to say the things that you say, to do the things that make you happy, that's where really freedom comes from,
Yeah.
right? And we are the only ones that have the key to unlock that freedom. It's here. Freedom is here. So when we unlock that freedom, then we flourish.
Yes. And if you're listening, she's pointing to her head, right? Your mindset, like your
Yes,
freedom. That's where
yes.
it is.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking
No,
that
it's
people are
fine.
watching.
It's all good. But I do love this. All right, so let's talk about fear. It's the four-letter word no one wants to talk about, but I do think it is one of the things that consistently holds a lot of women back. So, as you were embarking on this journey as a life coach, as an author, as a newly single woman, like what fears did you have and how did you overcome them?
Right. So I always say that fear is inevitable. Fear is
Mhm.
part of all of us, right? We always have fear of something. In
Yep.
my case, when I had to reinvent myself, I had fear of the unknown. I had fear of failure. I had a fear of not making a meaningful impact on people. But one thing that I did have is a certainty that I wanted to do something different with myself. And I believed in myself. And so by believing in myself and my potential, that gave me the strength to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to go forward no matter what.
Mhm.
Because what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that I fail, and I'm not failing because I'm learning from a mistake, right? So if
Yeah.
I fail, then I get up and try again. So I think that fear is something that you have to take on with you and move forward. You cannot let fear paralyze you, because if you let fear paralyze you, then you're never going to get anywhere.
Oh, yeah, and the regrets just start to mount up, right? It's just like, oh, you start regretting the fact that you let fear hold you back. And it's like, I'd rather just go for it, fail potentially, and then be like, oh, well, at least I know. At least I know I tried.
Absolutely. And I always think in everything that I do that if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough, right? I
Yes.
need to feel, and this every day I apply this to my life. Like every day I need to do something different that gives me a little bit of fear, because that's how I know that I'm growing. Right. So what am I gonna do today? Oh, I'm gonna do a podcast. Oh, okay, okay. That gives me a little bit of anxiety and fear, but I'm gonna do it anyways because that's how I grow and evolve, right? So find something every day that causes that little fear so that you can grow.
Yeah. Oh, and if anyone is listening, well, I know you're listening to the people who are listening. Think of something right now that you could do that scares you a little bit. Like, that's my challenge to you today. Should you choose to accept it, is like figure out one thing that you can do that brings you a little bit of fear, but probably it's really more excitement, but a little fear, and like go do it. Just try and see what the outcome is. So
Absolutely.
powerful.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Yeah. And I'm glad too that you're, so open about being a single parent, because one of the sort of rebuttals that I get sometimes is, okay, Karen, well, you're married, so you can start your own business because you have a spouse. You have someone to fall back on if the money's not coming in. And I'm like, that's an excuse. That is purely your fear talking. So, as you are a great example, you went out on your own, you're doing your own thing, you have your own business, and you are a single mom. So, how are you able to make that leap and do your own business and know that, like, no, it's okay. I'm going to be able to provide for my family?
I'm going to tell you, it's trying to balance everything. It's not easy, because nothing in life is easy. That's my motto. When I think about like, oh my God, this is so hard. Well, everything is hard if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Starting anything is hard. Changing careers is hard. Starting a business is hard. Just living itself, it's hard, right? So you have to decide, and just know that you have to have the desire and the will to succeed no
Mhm.
matter what. And sometimes, like I always say, you never know how strong you are until being strong is the only thing that you have, right? And
Yeah.
so when I became a single mother, I had no other way but to move forward. And so here I am balancing a business, balancing motherhood, and trying to be a business coach and help my clients and be an author and all these things. And I do it. And I think I always think about why. Why do I do this? Why do I do this? I always fall back on my why. Well, because I want to leave a legacy, because I want to be a role model for my kids, because it's fulfilling for my professional career, right? So I always fall back into my why, and that gives me that strength and motivation to move forward, right? And the other
Yeah.
thing that I do is that I am very disciplined, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
very consistent. And I think that that's important because when you have a lot of responsibilities, you have to have some kind of strategy that works for you. So I already have a strategy that works for me in every aspect of my life so that everything works together. So
Yeah.
discipline and consistency is what works for me in terms of trying to balance everything that I do.
Yeah, and I see that in a lot of the women that I coach, the ones that are most successful, they have that discipline, right? They wake up every day and they know exactly what they're doing each hour of the day and it all fits together. It's the ones that are a little more willy-nilly that are like they struggle a little bit, right? They're a little giving themselves a little too much grace, a little too
Yeah,
much
yeah,
freedom.
yeah. I know, but that happens too. Like, especially when we become entrepreneurs, like we think, oh, we're gonna have the freedom to do everything. But no, that's when you have to be the most disciplined and more
Yeah.
organized and structured, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise then you lose focus. And I think that discipline and consistency is what gets you to anything that you want to do in life.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
So, I have several clients that have gone through a divorce, as you mentioned, you have, or they're contemplating getting one. And I'm curious, how have you managed to rebuild your identity for this next chapter of your life? Because I think a lot of women, it's kind of like you said earlier, like I have cancer, but cancer doesn't have me. It's like I'm divorced, and then that becomes their whole identity. So, how are you able to shift through that?
Right. So, I mean, navigating through a divorce, it's challenging. I'm not gonna lie. It
Sure.
was very challenging, but it took a lot of rebuilding my identity, right? And the process of like self-discovery and resilience. And through that process, I started focusing on myself and understanding who I really was. Because when you've been married for such a long time, you kind of lose yourself, right? You kind of forget
Hmm.
about who you really are because you're so committed to this other person. And so it was a time in which I had to learn about who I really was and discover myself and work on myself and seek professional guidance and see, this is who I am and now how do I move forward? So it took a lot of retrospect, but it took a lot of embracing as well and knowing that I had what it takes to move forward
Yeah.
because we all do, it's just a matter of again making a decision. And so again, I knew that I had to do it and I had no choice. So it was just a matter of me learning to reinvent myself and being able to say I'm ready to move forward.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that's even just it, right? That acknowledgement of like, it's okay. I'm ready for this next phase, this next chapter of me. And because if we're not, we're going to hold ourselves back and we're going to have all kinds of self sabotage and all the things that are going to block us. But we won't really realize it because most of it'll be subconscious. We won't
Absolutely.
actively be doing it consciously, but it's happening. So, yeah, just
Absolutely.
that understanding of like, it's okay. I'm going to move forward.
Yeah, and I always say like we have to give ourselves permission to feel the feeling of whatever it is that we're going through. Whether it's in my case, I went through cancer, so I had to feel the feeling, right? Divorce, I had to feel the feeling and feel that loss and let myself cry and feel sad. But you know what? I always say, okay, you cannot live there. So at one point, you got to stop and say, I'm done with this. Now, what am I going to do to change my situation? And so that's what I did. Just like when I cried for an hour in the car, I'm like, okay, I have cancer. Cancer doesn't have me, kind of thing. Okay, now I went through cancer. Now I'm going through a divorce, but this is not who I am, so I need to move forward, right? So you take control. Because I always like to
Yes.
say that we have a committee in our head, and it's a negative committee, and it likes to gather there. And so we have to let the committee know who's the boss. So you're the boss of the committee. So you let them know how you want to be directed.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And we have so much more power than we give ourselves credit
Yes,
for, don't we?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. We get to
Yeah.
decide. We're the boss.
I
Mhm.
love it. When I
Mhm.
first left my job, I kept calling myself like CEO of my life. And like people were reaching out to me on LinkedIn, congratulations on your new role at my life. I'm like, no, no, you dummy. I was like, I'm literally saying I'm the CEO of my life. I don't need to ask anybody about whether I can go pick up my kids from school or whether I can go to the spa today or whether I can see client. Like it's all up to me. I
Right.
direct everything. And that was just like the best feeling.
Absolutely. And I think people undergo that. Like they don't realize that we are the CEO. We get to make the decisions. Like I said earlier, freedom is here. We get to
Yeah.
unlock it when we want to. We have that liberty, but we're just so stuck on what's not possible, what's happening to us and not for us that we forget about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Now, did I see that you also run a salon? I mean, what don't you do? But how do you balance this all? And can you maybe share a few tips that have helped you along the way to keep all your priorities in check?
Well, yes, I don't do hair, so I mean I don't have to be behind the chair. I do the back work, which is the managing, and I have systems in place. Obviously, I have people that work for me, and so they're
Yeah.
able to handle that aspect of me, and I just oversee everything. So that helps me. And like I said earlier, what helps me the most is that I have a structure and I have systems in place that I am able to rely on. So I know exactly what I need to do every single day so that everything works smoothly.
Yeah, and I think delegating is a really big key here because especially for entrepreneurs when you have got multiple business streams as you do, you can't do it all. There's not enough hours in the day. So having the confidence to be able to say, "No, I'm going to delegate this to somebody else. I don't need to be there working in the salon. I'm going to work on the salon from behind the scenes." I mean, that takes a lot of courage and guts too.
Absolutely. I think that was one of the hardest lessons that cancer taught me because
Mm,
before cancer, I was a control freak. Like I needed to do everything. And even if I delegated, I'll be like, okay, now let me do it again because I could do it better. Right.
mhm.
And that was one of the things that I had to let go because when you have cancer, forget about work. You have to focus on your health. And
Yeah.
so I learned that the hard way, delegating is the way to go. And so now I learned I'm a master at delegating. I delegate everything because if I want to be successful at something, I cannot do it all by myself. And that's something that we women, we have to learn. Sometimes we want to do everything
Mm.
and we probably can do everything, but not at the same time. Right?
Yes.
So we have to
Yeah.
prioritize what is really important and what's not that important, you can delegate. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do.
Yeah, I love it. And invest in it. I mean, I pay for stuff. I have my virtual assistant now. I pay for my
Of
web
course.
development. I'm like, I'm staying in my zone of genius. Just give me the clients to coach and like everything else, just no, someone else can do it for me.
Exactly. Absolutely. You have to outsource and then you become more productive
Yes. And more successful for
and more
sure.
successful. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, this has been amazing. We are nearing the end of our time, but I have two more questions. One, being a self published author takes a lot of grit. So, how do you keep yourself going when you hit a lull or things aren't going, sales aren't blowing through the roof? What any advice for other fellow authors out there who are going the self-published route?
Of course. I always rely on my determination and passion for everything that I do. Right. So when things don't go the way that I expect, I ask, why am I doing this? And I remind myself of my why. And that gives me the courage of moving forward. And another thing that I like to do is that I always like to go back to my past victories, right? Because we all have victories, but we focus on the failures. So I
Right.
always go back to my past victories and say, what have I accomplished? And then I go back to that feeling, that emotion that I had while I was going through that. And that fuels me with like, okay, so then I could do this again, or I could keep moving forward because I know that I could do it. And so I think that going back to your past victories and relying on your determination and your passion for everything that you do, I think that that's where the key is.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. And I mean, it's a marathon, I say, when it comes to being an author, not a sprint. So we're not looking necessarily for all those crazy sales right out of the gate, but just that constant impact over time, the thousands of lives that we will eventually reach.
Absolutely. And I think that's important. And I always say that even if you touch one person's life a day, you're already making a difference.
Yes. Yes. And we have so many ways that we can touch one person's life a day. I mean, simple things like just smiling at somebody at the grocery store that maybe has had a string of nasty customers be in
Yes,
front of you, like that can make such a big difference in someone's life. It's so easy.
absolutely. I always say I'm in the customer service field because I deal with customers, in my salon.
Of
And
course.
sometimes they come in a bad mood and they're having a rough day, and they take it out on us, on the receptionist or on the stylist. And I always look, I listen because we have to master the art of listening. People need to
Mhm.
to feel understood. And when you take the time to listen to someone and just listen and give them a word of reassurance or a smile, like you said, that makes the whole scenery change, right? It changes the whole perspective of someone.
It really does. And that's so much of what we do as coaches is giving people that space to just dump it all out, like be you authentically, show up, feel all the feels, say all the things that you wouldn't say to anyone else. And they're just like, "Oh my gosh, someone actually really listened to me. This feels
Yes.
so good."
And that is what it is. People need to feel understood. Once a person,
Mhm.
it could be the person that is like very upset. And if they feel understood, if they're talking to you and they feel like you understood them, they calm down.
Totally.
Hmm.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love this. All right. So, for the women that are listening that know they want to make a change, but they don't know how to get started, what would you say to those women?
I would say first make a decision. Make a decision to change something or to start something, right? And once you make a decision, take small steps, right? One step at a time. So today I'm going to do this. And then you work on that. And then tomorrow I'm going to do this. Or next month I'm going to do this. And once you start and you start making progress, you're going to see that that's going to give you momentum to move forward.
Yeah.
So take it one step at a time, but make the decision to start whatever it is that you want to start.
Oh, yeah. Can't do anything without making that decision, making that commitment to
Absolutely.
ourselves.
Yes, yes. Mhm.
Yeah. Wise words, Lucy. So, if women are listening to this and they're like, I need more Lucy in my life, I want to get her books, like, where can they connect with you and get I Had Killer Boobs?
Yes, well, they can get it through Amazon or Barnes& and Nobles. I'm there, and they can go through my IG, Lucy Beato Coach. I'm there to help them out, answer questions, or to, for whatever it is, or they can go to my website, lucy.com.
Great. And I will make sure all of that is in the show notes so everyone can just quickly, easily click in. Go give her a follow on Instagram. Make sure you connect with Lucy. She's super responsive in her DMs. We go back and forth all the time. So don't hesitate to reach out. Lots of great content on her feeds. And I know that you will absolutely love her book. So go support a self published author.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karen, for allowing me this time to share with your audience. And it's been really a pleasure.
Oh, it's been amazing to have you. Thank you for being here. I look forward to staying connected. And to everyone else, until next time, stay fabulous. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're inspired to take action by committing to one of the tips or strategies we talked about in today's episode. And if you want accountability and support, I've got your back. Join my private Facebook group, Successful Working Women Rocking Reinvention, today. You'll find a community of like-minded women waiting to support you, exclusive content, and helpful resources to ensure you succeed. Lastly, if you loved this episode, do me a favor and be sure to leave a review. Together, we can encourage more women to live their purpose. See you next time.